welcome to the Jobcast. Today, we're discussing tips for staying organized and motivated during your job search. And I'm excited to introduce our guest speaker today, Emilie Aries. Emilie is a podcast host, author, and the founder and CEO of Bossed Up, an award-winning personal and professional development community where she helps women craft happy, healthy, and sustainable career paths. And that's me, Brandy Warwas. I'm a manager on Indeed's Job Seeker Experience team. We're responsible for creating helpful resources like this Jobcast for our users, like you. Take it away, Emilie.
Thanks so much, Brandy, and hello to my job seekers out there. Thank you, and really thanks so many of you for taking time out of your day to share your most precious resource, your day, your time, your precious time, to really focus inward on how to get organized on the job search. I got my start in the wild world of campaigns and elections when I first entered the workforce over a decade ago now. And one thing that working in campaigns and elections teaches all of us is how important it is to always be ready to launch your next job search. Because no matter how well you do, come election day, we're all out of a job. So I pivoted my career early on after rising quickly in politics and campaigns to focus not just on advocating for candidates I believed in, but really to focus on how to advocate for myself and how to help other women in particular advocate for yourself in the workplace, in a world that still isn't quite sure if it always likes women who dare to advocate for themselves. Now, wherever you fall on the gender spectrum, this conversation today pertains to you, because what we're really going to break down is the step-by-step process for beginning to get really organized for the modern job search, which is such a multifaceted initiative. It's kind of like running a campaign, except instead of a candidate who you're supporting, the candidate is you. So consider me your job search advocate, your partner in crime in launching your most strategic, and I would argue sustainable and modern job search yet. We're going to break this process down in 4 concrete steps today. First, before you begin polishing that resume of yours, I want to make sure that you've clarified your direction. From there, we're going to organize your networking, which we all know is such a big part of the job search today, even though we're now navigating networking remotely for the most part. And then we'll talk about getting your job search assets together and creating a sustainable job search schedule. Now, whether you're a full-time job searcher who has been on the hunt and is, sending out applications pretty much every other day, or if you're someone who's trying to hold down a full-time job while searching on the side, the name of the game is sustainable. We want to set you up with the tools and the practices you need to be sustainably successful, because the reality of the situation is the modern job search can take months. I'm here to help you maintain that motivation and drive you need to get up each and every day and advocate for yourself. Now, Brandy's sharing with all of us today a corresponding handout that I highly recommend you download. Not only does it have more details on myself and the free resources we have available at Bossed Up for all kinds of job seekers, but it also has interactive components that partner really well with what I'll be talking about today. It's an editable PDF. So if you download it right away, you can begin editing it and filling in the fields as we go through these exercises together. But if for any reason that doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. Like Brandy said, you don't need to be clicking on everything. Just stay focused, stay present, and we'll make sure to have time to answer any lingering questions that come up at the end. I know there's a lot of us on today. We've got a lot to cover, so I'm going to jump right in. And again, thanks for your time and attention today. I'm so excited about this topic. One of the biggest mistakes that I see job seekers make, and really I've been working with folks at the pivot points in career transitional moments in their lives since I launched Bossed Up in early 2013. So over the better part of the last decade, I've seen quite a few folks make this common mistake, which is to launch their job search without a clear sense of what they want. Spoiler alert, I know that desperate times make you lower your bar and make you think, whatever, I'll take whatever. I will literally do whatever you need me to do as long as it pays my bills. But that does you a disservice. That attitude makes it really hard for other people to help you. Like, I don't know what she wants. I don't know what they're good at. I don't know what he is really looking for. Makes it a lot harder for the folks who want to support you, including potential employers, to even see you as a potential fit. So resist the temptation to lower your bar, and clarifying your direction is the first and most important step for any strategic job search. And that's why we're here, right? We're not here just to run a half-baked job search, right? We're not just throwing everything against the wall and seeing what sticks. If you want to be successful in the modern job search market, you've got to be strategic. So what does it look like to clarify your direction? What if you're like, Emilie, I have no idea what I want. I literally will take anything. I've got a few exercises that can help. First, ask yourself this. I call this the love, loathe, learn exercise. 3 questions for your consideration. And this is the first interactive page on your fillable handout that I shared with you today. What did you love about your last job? Perhaps you're in your last job right now. What do you love about your current job? Or if you haven't worked for a while, what's the last time that you can remember loving the work that you were doing? What did you love about it? Think really practically. Was there something about the work you were doing that was really engaging? Was there something about the people you were working with that kept your spirits high? Was there work that got you into that state of flow where time just kept rolling by, but you didn't even notice because you were so engrossed in the work you were doing? Really take stock of what you loved. And I know that can be hard if you hated your last job or you hate your current job, but look for the bright spots because they're full of precious information. Even in a job that overall you hate, there had to be some components to it that you loved, or I would hope maybe at least liked. You reflect on the bright spots so you can look for those and replicate those in your next job. From there on, what did you loathe about your last job or your current job if you're looking to leave where you currently are? This is an easy question to answer for most job seekers because you've got a good reason to leave, right? Was it a lack of growth potential? Was it a lack of pay that was on fair market value? Was it a feeling of isolation, like you were in it alone, you were a department of one, you had no support? What did you loathe about your last job so you know what to avoid moving forward? And finally, what would you like to learn? What is it that you always wanted to try your hand at, but have never really had an opportunity to do so? Maybe you've always been curious about analytics and website optimization and user experience, but you've got no credentials per se, or you feel like you're an imposter and you're not sure that you've ever really had a chance to try your hand at such skills. Clarify what it is that you want to learn so you can look for those opportunities in your next job as well. These 3 simple questions can set you on a course to clarifying your direction, and really articulating that to other people is important. I always say to focus on the micro when thinking about your love, loathe, and learn goals. Don't focus on the macro, meaning it's easy to sometimes say, I really love economics and I really loathe public policy. That's too macro level. You got to get more into the nitty gritty of what are the actions that you were doing every day. You can't just say, I really love tech. I love the industry of tech. That's too macro. Get more granular. I love writing. I love getting up every day and facilitating team meetings. I love presenting. I love public speaking. I know very few people say that, but it's true. So figuring out the activities, the micro level tasks that really light you up, that's going to help set you in the right direction. Thinking too macro can kind of leave you spinning your wheels and not concretely identifying what job duties you would love to do. Now, I also would hold a want to share a word of warning here about career transitioners. So if you're someone who's looking for a job in a totally different industry, which by the way, I did a past job cast on that you should check out here on Indeed.com. I want you to be aware of what my fellow job search coach and career coach, Kathy Caprino, calls the pendulum effect. This is the tendency for career pivoters to swing so far away from the job that they're leaving that they tend to overcorrect. I'll give you a quick example. A friend of mine, Dominique, was working early on in her career as an investment banker on Wall Street. And while she was experiencing some elements of success, she was deeply unhappy. She did not feel fulfilled helping her very wealthy clients become even more wealthy. It just wasn't lighting her up, and it didn't seem like something she could motivate herself to continue doing for 30, maybe 40 years. So she decided she would quit her finance job and open a cupcake bakery. Who here has the bakery fantasy? I call that like the number one most common escapist fantasy for the white collar worker, which is someday I'm gonna give it all up for a bakery. And I tell you, I have that fantasy myself. Well, Dominique actually pursued that fantasy, and it turns out a few months into her cupcake bakery, she realized something. You know what? She said to me, I am more of a cupcake consumer than a cupcake entrepreneur. I think I may have overcorrected. But there were some elements of running her own cupcake bakery she really liked. She liked being her own boss. She loved the interesting intricacies of branding and marketing her own business and running a business and figuring out how to manage a team and run her own shop. But she actually missed some of the elements of the world of finance. So what she did is, after completely swinging in the opposite direction from Wall Street to Cupcake Bakery, she settled somewhere in the middle, launching her own business as a personal financial coach. And she's been helping entrepreneurs and individuals get their money right ever since, because she loves sharing what she's learned about finance with folks who might not be able to have afforded her big Wall Street investment banker type companies. So now she's 10 years into a very successful personal financial coaching business, which combines the elements of what she loves. So I share this story to make sure you don't overcorrect and head too far in the opposite direction. In other words, don't run from your last job. I want you to get clear on what kind of job you would want to run to. So that we're not reacting to what we've experienced in the past alone, but instead running towards an opportunity that is right for us next. One of the best ways to explore different career paths that might be right for you is on the Explore Career Path page at indeed.com/career. Lots of different career paths for you to get to know more about there as well. Also, skills assessments can be really helpful. Sometimes we're like, well, honestly, I have lots of things I want to do, but I don't know what I'm qualified to do. Who says I'm capable of getting into UX design? Or who says I'm capable of launching a cupcake bakery? If you're feeling deeply insecure, first of all, acknowledge the reality that part of that might just be self-doubt. We all experience it, unless you're a megalomaniac and egomaniac. It is healthy to have some amount of self-doubt. And the imposter syndrome disproportionately impacts women, people of color, and marginalized folks by making us feel like we don't belong. So therefore, we shouldn't try to forge a new path for ourselves that hasn't already been paved for us. Part of that might just be self-doubt. So take inventory of your skills. Really get real with yourself. What can I do? What skills do I bring to the table? And don't forget those hard skills like coding and accounting and programming and writing are just as important as soft skills like management and communication, verbal communication, leading, emotional intelligence. I like the Gallup Top 5 assessment. All of these assessments can be a good place to start. And of course, Indeed's assessments are really helpful at comparing jobs that require certain skill sets and the skills that you already have. The reality is, you don't know what you don't know. There's always going to be that feeling of a leap of faith. It can make you crazy. It really does make you feel a little bit like you're walking on the wild side. To dare to go for a job that you don't feel 100% qualified for can feel scary, but it is par for the course, y'all. If you are applying for a job that you feel like you could already do with your eyes shut, you're probably not aiming high enough. People want to hire people who have room to grow. So make sure you're not, you're embracing the fact that you don't need to know everything to apply to the job. One other way to think about clarifying your direction is to explore whose careers you really admire. I call these folks my career crushes. These are the people who on Instagram, you're like, dang, her glow up is just too much. I can't even handle it. Maybe even on occasion, it makes you kind of rage quit the app. And you're like, she's shining too bright for me. And I'm starting to feel a certain type of way. Acknowledge jealousy, acknowledge envy. They're normal. They're human responses to other people who are achieving something you want. You can decide in that moment to either turn away, suppress your feelings, shove those feelings down, deny them, pretend like they don't exist, or lean into them with compassionate curiosity. Ask yourself, what do they know? Or what do they have that I need to have or that I want to know? If you lean into envy, it can actually be a very helpful road sign pointing in the direction of what you really want. So once you've assessed those skills that you have and the skills that you need, perhaps to get to that next level, yes, it means looking at your inadequacies without apology and acknowledging the reality that we all have room to learn and grow. But it's the first most important step to set you on the path to upskilling, to growing, and to preparing yourself for the career that you want and for the job that you want next. So clarifying your direction, super important to start there. If you don't know the direction you're headed in, at least vaguely, it doesn't have to be crystal clear, but at least vaguely, it can be really hard for any of these next steps to work. The order of operations here matters, y'all, okay? Step 2, I say lead with networking, even before you start concretely applying. So if you're here because you're just getting started, you're in the right place. You're not behind. You don't need to be applying to 100 jobs a day. Okay. Networking is the name of the game when it comes to the modern job search. And in fact, if you were struggling in that last section to identify the direction you actually want to head in, and you're just not sure where you want to take your career next, networking can be part of the exploration process. So how do you organize this? This is, after all, a jobcast about organizing the job search. So how do I make this process of networking manageable? I'm a big fan of a spreadsheet. Put it in a spreadsheet, y'all, preferably on Google Docs or Google Sheets so that you can access it anywhere, so that you can constantly be updating and tracking who it is that you're reaching out to. Why? Because you want to make sure that you circle back with those folks, that you don't forget to send the thank you note, that you don't forget to update people who are serving as references for you, who are helping you on your journey to landing the job that you love, right? An updated spreadsheet can really help bring some structure to your job search, and it can help you maintain a feeling of control, of agency, of saying, well, I can't determine if the job that I just applied to is going to call me in for an interview, but I can open up my spreadsheet at least once or twice a week, check in on who I need to email, who I've reached out to already, who connected me with their brother, sister's, cousin's friend, so that I need to follow up with them, right? It gives you something that you can actually tangibly work on when there are so many elements of the job search that are not fully within your control, right? This is something you can add to your regular job search routine. Once you've made your spreadsheet, which, by the way, you should start with the folks you already know, right? Your former colleagues, former classmates, former professors, teachers, friends, associations, that person you once had that great conversation with at a happy hour 2 years ago. Start with who you know. And then from there, ask the folks who you know who else you should know and who else is in the industry that you're targeting, or who else might be in a position to share some wisdom with you, right? That's how to start making your target list. I always say start with a clear, concise outreach email. You want to make sure that it has a pretty attention-grabbing subject line. Keep it super short and sweet. Get to the point. What is it that you're asking for? And consider what's in it for me, or the WIFM, as my former college professor of persuasive communication, Barbara Tannenbaum, used to call it. WIFM. What's in it for me? Really think about it from that person's perspective. Who's on the receiving end of your email? They're busy. They're probably burnt out from this insane year that we've all been having. We've all been navigating. They might be reading your email on their cell phone in the grocery checkout line with their 4-year-old tugging on their pant leg. I want you to always keep that image in mind when you're writing an email. If someone who is just skimming your email on their phone in the grocery store checkout line with a mask on their face and a 4-year-old clinging to their leg cannot get the sense of who you are and what you want in your email, you need to make it shorter and more clear, right? And then finally, I say it's all about the bump. What does that mean? It means your first email will likely go unresponded to. Your first email is unlikely to yield a response, especially if this is someone you haven't talked to in a long time or even someone you've never talked to, which is perfectly fine. What does that mean? It means you send the email anyway. You fully expect that email to be ignored. And then you look at that spreadsheet and say a week later or 2 weeks later, I'm going to bump it up for them. I'm going to hit reply on that thread. I'm going to say, hey, Emilie, I know things are crazy and this might have gotten buried in your inbox last week, but what do you think? And you delete any long footers that get in the way of that second email and your first email, and you just bump it up for them. When someone bumps an email up for me, it shows me that they understand I'm busy and that I might not get to them right away. It also shows me that they really want to connect with me. It shows an element of grit and determination. And that stands out in today's modern world. So put in your all, write a stellar outreach email, and then bump it up. Don't expect that first email to do the trick. Sometimes it takes 1, 2, or 3. And I've honestly had to bump it up for folks for a matter of months. And I know it feels sometimes like you're being super annoying, but if the WIFM is there, if there's a good reason for the two of you to connect, and you can really make a good case of how they're connecting with you can make an impact in your life, but also perhaps make a positive impact on their life, keep at it. Because I'll tell you what, as someone, I am a podcaster. I have a twice a week podcast called Bossed Up, all about the job search and personal and professional development. And sometimes to get the best, most incredible guests, we got to bump those email invitations up for months at a time, and they pay off. So only you know what the balance is for you in terms of how frequently and how often and when to quit. But don't quit too easy, y'all. Bump it up. All right, here's an example of a past email I wrote to someone who was a friend of a friend who worked in digital tech in DC when I was a Politico. I had just gotten off the campaign trail. I'd been working in field. I was really looking to get more into what was called new media at the time, which now we call digital marketing in the world of politics. So the subject line I wrote to this person said, "Hi, Joy." Note that I used their name in the subject line to capture their attention. I said, "Connect with an aspiring woman in tech in DC." "Hey there, Joy. I'm Emilie, a former classmate of Jane Doe's. If you've got a common friend, a name to drop it early and often in the email. I'm a friend of someone that you know. Level with them. Lay it out there. Do not bury that lead. I'm writing to see if you might spare a few moments for a fellow woman in tech looking to break into the ad tech job market here in DC. I admire the path that you've forged at DoubleClick, Living Social, and now Cvent, and would love to be in a position to support you in return down the road." What does that sentence do? It tells Joy, I paid attention to where you've worked. I am familiar with your career, or at least with your LinkedIn profile. And that's specifically why you would be someone who I want to connect with. And in fact, even though I don't know how I could support you, I'm going into this ask with a underlying assumption of mutuality, with mutual support being my underlying theme here. I'd love to support you down the road too, somehow, some way, someday. Do you have 20 minutes to connect over video chat next week? A clear, concise, concrete ask. And I'm always recommending to job seekers ask for a live conversation, because no email, no text exchange, no DM back and forth can capture the same kind of relationship building essence of who you are, as well as a phone call, a coffee meeting, or a virtual video call can in today's day and age. Now, if that feels super short, it's because it is super short. If you've got more details to share, drop it in link form. You'll notice I dropped my personal website, emiliearies.com there. You might drop your LinkedIn profile, or if you've had a chance to build a CV website, drop it there. If they want more information, give them a link to find it. Then from there, make it as delightful and easy as possible for these folks to say yes. If they say, sure, I'd love to meet with you. I'm available next Tuesday at 1 p.m. And you're like, dang, it's the one time I'm really not available because I have a job interview then. Use some of these schools or scheduling tools rather to cut down on the email back and forth. Nobody wants to go back and forth 17 times trying to find the right time. So do everything in your power to be your own best administrative assistant and make scheduling easy and simple on this person. Similarly, make sure you're using whatever medium works best for them. If they prefer a phone call or they prefer a video call or Skype or whatever, defer to them. Make it easy for them to give their precious resource of time, energy, and expertise to you. Now, from there, you want to really make the most of these one-on-one meetings. Lead with your story. Who are you? Why do you care about this? Why are you on the job search? What motivates you? What is your why? I know it's tempting to go in and just ramble off your resume in verbal format, but nobody's inspired by that. That's what your resume is for. Instead, tell me what's motivating the job search. Based off of the events this year, I'm more inspired than ever to get back into the healthcare industry and lend a helping hand to the scientific community. That's an inspiring why. Maybe it's more than ever, this year has taught me that life is precious and time is limited, and I can't just waste away at a job that's good enough, but not great. And that's why I'm looking for my next opportunity for growth and leadership. Whatever it is, why now? Why are you searching now? Give me your why. Don't give me your what. That's what your resume can tell me. Similarly, ask them about their why. Why did you choose to leave DoubleClick and go to Cvent? Why did you choose to get into tech from higher education? What is really motivating your career trajectory now? I know those feel like big philosophical questions, and they are. But you want to level with people and really make a connection. It doesn't happen by sharing each other's professional accomplishments. Humans hire humans. So bring your human to these conversations, okay? The best goal of story sharing is to identify what values you share and which resources you do not. For example, when I was just starting Bossed Up, I was living in DC. I was connecting with lots of scientists and scholars and academics in the field of goal attainment and gender research, which is a fascinating field. It's really informed a lot of my work. How do we help women mitigate guilt and reduce multitasking and role overload and focus on what it is that we really want out of our careers and lives, right? So I was connecting with people who shared my passion for that question, but bring very diverse resources to the table. I had people, I had digital media presence, I had a willingness to quit my job and start this new venture and connect women in DC with each other and build these powerful spaces and trainings and workshops and communities. And the academic researchers I was connecting with had academic literature, had research, had studies. They wanted to access the same people I was working with at Bossed Up, but we brought really diverse skill sets and resources to the table. That made for some brilliant partnerships. So think of your networking as really a quest for partnerships on the job search. Maybe they have a referral they could lend you. Maybe they have a door they could open for you. Maybe they have a connection they could make happen for you. But they have to come from shared values first. Why would they want to do that? Shared values. Identify shared values and diverse resources. And then always land on a clear ask. Ask for it. What is it that you want help with? What is it that would help you move your job search forward? It's always great to lead with that reciprocal element, right? Offering to help in return, even if it's just an ambiguous ask of, if there's ever anything else I can do for you down the road, please don't hesitate to reach out and follow up. It goes without saying, if you have a great conversation, you've gotten this far and you don't follow up, all of that work up until that point has gone for nothing. So don't ruin the relationship that's just starting to blossom by not following up with appreciation. Sometimes that looks like as simple as a text or an email expressing your gratitude. If someone really does you a solid and really goes out on a limb for you, Send them a card, a handwritten note, a book, a box of candy. I'm a big fan of the gift, corporate gifting, but just know that there are some people who can't accept gifts because of influence and sort of trade. I don't want to say trade laws, but just know your industry norms. Public servants cannot accept gifts. So if you're in the public sector, don't follow up with a thank you candy box or a Starbucks gift card. But if you are in the private sector, whenever I have a networking meeting with someone, especially during this weird COVID remote work era, I almost always follow up with a $5 Starbucks gift card sent via email saying, thanks so much for sharing your time and expertise with me. Your next coffee's on me. I would have bought them a coffee in person if we were meeting up in person. So that's my way of doing it virtually. All right. You've clarified your direction. You've started the networking game, which we all know is so important to the job search process. Now, if you haven't already, it's time to get your assets together. So what do I mean when I say get your job search assets together? I mean, it is time to polish up that resume. Yes, I know this is such a huge subject. It's the subject of standalone job casts in and of themselves. Your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, your social media audit, whatever public or private personas that you're managing on social media. The reason I leave this step for third is because you're going to be better at editing that resume and writing that cover letter once you've spoken to multiple people in your field. Once you've discussed your why with people out loud, you're going to be better positioned to sit there and write your resume and write maybe a cover letter template that you can start from for use in future job applications from the perspective of, okay, who is it that I'm writing to? What is it that really stood out in my networking meetings thus far? Use networking as a gut check to inform your resume. Think about it. How many of you have been editing your resume into oblivion and listening to every single person's piece of feedback, including your sister who's not in your field, your dad who has been retired for 20 years, and all kinds of random people in your life who don't know your industry? That's not going to help you. You need to know who your audience is, and hopefully through networking, start talking to them and then bring that feedback into the editing process. I've got a job search accelerator program at BossUp called Hired. And our second week, we start to jump right into resume editing. But I always tell my clients, editing your resume is never done. I hate to break it to y'all because I know we want to just cross it off our to-do list, but it is an iterative process. It is constantly evolving. So at the very least, when you go into polishing up your job search assets, you want to have a little bit of conversation and networking under your belt at that point, as well as introspection about your direction, so that you can really write a targeted and strategic job search material. So whether it's knowing your goals or knowing your audience, you need both to write a strategic, targeted resume and cover letter. I can't talk about each one of these or we will be here all day, but I'll definitely refer you to the other job casts Brandy's put on here at Indeed that go into much more detail. You just want to make sure as you are getting your assets together that your resume, your cover letter template, which I always refer to as just the baseline that you start from more customized cover letters that you write for different jobs, your LinkedIn profile and your social media should all speak to one another, right? They should all share a consistent message because consistency creates trust. So if I'm getting one version of Emilie Aries on LinkedIn, which by the way, connect with me there if you haven't already, I feel like we could be friends there. But if I'm getting one version of Emilie Aries on LinkedIn and a totally different version of Emilie Aries at emiliearies.com or on my resume or on my Twitter account, you're going to start to scratch your head and think, whoa, is this person who she says she is? Like I'm starting to get suspicious if this is even the same person. Consistency creates trust. And you got to assume your potential next boss is going to be Googling you, right? They're going to be looking into all of these elements. So you want to make sure there's consistency throughout. Lots of great resume and cover letter templates also available on indeed.com/career-advice. So be sure to check those out. And then finally, this is arguably one of the most important parts of the job search organization, is how to make this consistent, how to get up every day and stay motivated throughout this process, because I know it is not easy. I know that this can be a long, murky, confusing process. So my best recommendation here is to create a regular weekly workflow, kind of create a job search schedule for yourself. We humans are creatures of habit. And if you are one of the millions of unemployed in America right now, all of your structure, all of your habits have just been thrown out the window when the rug's been pulled out from underneath you. So it can be easy to just stay in bed under the covers away all day on your phone, halfway browsing the job boards, then halfway editing a resume, and then losing the motivation to get up. I get it. It's depressing. It's concerning. It is a demoralizing year all around. So how do we overcome that? One is just create structure for yourself and really to focus on what you can control. So for example, some of my full-time job search clients, they'll do Mondays for job boards. Every Monday they get up and say, okay, today my primary goal is to scour Indeed and all the job boards and my industry-specific listservs to just look for opportunities that interest me. That's my Mondays. I'm really focusing on exploring what's out there. On Tuesday, I begin to apply to one of the jobs that I identified as my 3 jobs that I'm going to apply to this week. On Wednesday, I'm going to connect with my network. I'm going to focus on hitting up my networking spreadsheet, following up with people, finding new connections, joining webinars like this one, connecting with people in the comments, following up with the guest speakers, and really fostering new relationships that could help me. Thursday and Friday, I'm going to send off application number 2 and application number 3. And the weekend, I'm going to give myself permission to rest, because rest and renewal is just as important. For my full-time job seekers, they might be busting their butt at their day job Monday through Friday with almost no brain space other than time on the weekends to apply to their job. I know it feels like applying for your next job is a full-time job sometimes. So here's how their weekly workflow might look. One of my job search clients who's working full-time says, my goal throughout the week is by Friday night to have scoured the job boards and to have identified the 1 or 2 jobs I'm going to apply to that weekend. Saturday morning, I'm going to wake up. My house is going to be a mess, and that's okay. I'm not doing anything around the house. People might be wanting to go out to brunch with me. I'm going to say no, because Saturday mornings are for applying to those jobs that I identified during the week. Sunday is when I reschedule those emails to go out to my network, to reconnect with my network on, maybe I'll have them automatically sent Monday morning, but Saturday morning is when I apply. Whatever workflow works for you, set it. Put it in your planner, put it in your Google Calendar, wherever you need to put it. Consider what weekly workflow is going to work best for you. And then every week, reevaluate. Is this working? Is this not? If so, how do I need to adjust it? Focus on what you can control. You can't control how likely that other person is to get back to you promptly. It might take the dream job that you just applied to might wait 3 months to get back to all candidates. And that can be really frustrating. So to sustain your motivation, focus on the benchmarks you can control. How many jobs did I apply to? How many jobs did I identify that I want to apply to? How many networking meetings did I have? If you're into SMART goals, the strategic, measurable, actionable, realistic, whatever it's called, that whole acronym, focus on setting numerical benchmarks each week for how many jobs to apply to, how many networking meetings to have, and how many jobs to identify that you want to apply to. Those are the things that you really can control. I'm sure there's more I'm missing, but you get the idea. There's this really interesting principle in human motivation theory. Teresa Amabile, I think at Harvard, first identified this, which she calls the progress principle. Turns out that we humans, we all universally crave a sensation of forward momentum, right? Progress is in and of itself inherently motivating. So if you've been feeling unmotivated, If you've been feeling stuck, if you've been feeling demoralized, first of all, acknowledge it, label it, identify it. That's totally fine and normal and probably quite common. You are not alone, knowing the job seekers that I'm talking to every day and my clients every day. But from there, what is it that you can control? Because you need to feel a sensation of forward momentum in a very murky process in order to sustain your motivation. If you're like a lot of my clients, they gain motivation through collective action, through community building. So our Higher Job Search Accelerator is a 5-person cohort that goes through our week by week job search program together, having a call that you can get on with 5 other people or 4 other people who are in the same boat, or 4,000 other people like those who are tuning into this jobcast right now, come together with folks in a similar spot, share resources, share advice, share support and encouragement can make or break it. So sustain your motivation by focusing on what progress can you be proud of right now? And what community do you need to feel courageous to keep going? You can keep a sensation of forward momentum going really effectively with Indeed's job search application tracking system here. myjobs.indeed.com really helps you keep track of your applications and where you're at in the process with everything. And finally, you can focus on how to start and end your day strong. I know that morning and evening routines are very popular on social media, but it doesn't need to look Instagram worthy. It just needs to work for you. What is it that energizes you in the morning? For me, it's getting outside before I open my laptop. Got to take a walk with the dog, got to do some backyard yoga, or whatever it is that you've started to incorporate into your morning schedule during this very bizarre year. What is it that you need to do every morning to feel energized and to feel refreshed? One of the things I've renewed my sort of passion for is getting properly dressed. I'm not going to lie, I was just joking with Brandy about how I pretty much exclusively wear slippers nowadays, but at least I put on a nice blouse, right? Sometimes you just need to figure out what elements of clothing you need to put on to feel like a boss and to feel your best and to feel confident. It impacts the way you feel. Conversely, what do you need to do to feel winding down at the end of the day? What do you need to do to feel like you're not in work mode? You cannot be applying to jobs all day, all night, every day, every night. You can't do it. It's not even going to help you be more strategic. So what's your cutoff time? What's your ending routine? I like to put my phone to bed in the kitchen before I put myself to bed in the bedroom, because if I have my phone within reach of my bedroom or of my bed, I am going to be on it. So I have to know myself and set those boundaries so that I can actually wind down at the end of the day. I know it feels like you kind of need to mother yourself or parent yourself, but this is bossing up, y'all. This is taking responsibility for doing what you need to do to get what you want to get in life, right? It is hard. It takes discipline, but it takes practice. And those are things that we can all work on together. I hope if you learn nothing else from me today, and if you take nothing else away from this, it's that running your job search is not about getting there fastest. It's about sustaining your motivation through what can be a very murky, challenging, and long process. Rest and renewal is part of it, taking weekends off, taking nights off, doing things that refuel you, that refill your cup, that speak to your soul, whether it's seeing a friend or FaceTiming with a loved one or just getting out for a hike, like I am very wont to do here in Denver quite often. Celebrating those wins, celebrating the small wins along the way by focusing on the metrics you can control. Like, hey, I didn't get an interview this week, but at least I've submitted the 3 applications that I set out to this week. That's a win. Celebrate it. When I was a very struggling, shall we say, early entrepreneur, and frankly had no idea if this experiment that turned into Bossed Up was really going to work out, it was kind of a roller coaster of emotions, right? The highs felt very high and the lows felt very low. And my boyfriend at the time, now husband, Brad the Boom, he and I used to celebrate those highs because there was a lot of lows in between those highs, but our go-to celebration was a $1.39 box of funfetti cake. And we ritualized the making of funfetti in my galley kitchen with no dishwasher in not the nicest neighborhood of Washington, D.C., because even though we didn't have much, we had the ability to take that time, bake that dang cake, and celebrate the effort, the energy, the willingness to dare to try that we've been putting in. And that really kept me going during the tough times. At the end of the day, this year, 2020 has taught me more than ever that another tool we need to add to our tool belt is radical acceptance, right? The willingness to say, I can control what I can, and there is a whole lot that I cannot control. So yes, I'm doing what I need to do for us to get out of this mess, and I'm doing what I need to do for us to get that next job. But there are things that are out of my control, and I radically accept that. I let myself off the hook when it comes to those things. Those are some of the skills that I hope you can use to sustain your motivation throughout the job search. If nothing else, even though you don't know exactly how it's going to happen, have confidence in your ability to find your way to your next job. You might not know what that next job is right now. You might not know that you can do that next job just yet, but it will happen. You will find your next job. It is a matter of time. It's a matter of putting in the effort. It's a matter of showing up each and every day on your own behalf. So have confidence in your ability to get there. If you liked what you heard from me today, you're going to love my 100% free job search guide that I have at Bossed Up. It's almost 70 pages. It's geared specifically for the modern woman who wants to navigate the modern job search process. So head to bossedup.org/job search to get that free download. And while you're there, check out Hired, my job search accelerator program. We only have 5 spots available each month, working with myself or our coaches in really small group cohorts to sustain your motivation throughout the job search process. Brandy, thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you, Emilie. So now let's take a look at some of those top questions that came in and got upvoted. So first, how do you network during COVID-19? Would love tips and resources on how to make connections and networks. I know you hit on this a little bit during the presentation, but anything to add there, Emilie?
It's a tricky question for sure, but a client of mine recently shared this great pro tip, and I want to share it with y'all now. She is in a very niche industry. She is in my Hired Accelerator program, and she's trying to get from accounting into forensic accounting, which is kind of like white collar crime, very specific niche field. And she's kind of struggling to find people in that field that she can connect with, because people in forensic accounting are frankly quite good at keeping a low profile. It's part of the job. So what she's done is she found a university that happens to be based in Florida who has a specialty program focused on forensic accounting. Did she go to that university? No. Does she know anyone who went to that university? No. But she emailed the people in that program, the professors, the program managers, the career center. She's joined their webinars that are frankly designed for their students, but they're public. And she started going to that university's free career center run webinars, connecting students with real practitioners. And then she connects with the practitioners, and she sends a follow-up email afterwards saying, it was so great hearing you speak on this university's webinar. I'm not a student. I'm actually 10, 15 years into my career, but I would love to connect with you. Do you have 20 minutes to chat? And she says the solidness of that lead and the relationship that she was able to establish that way yields hour-long phone calls. And those hour-long phone calls yield other connections that she should talk to and other referrals. So that was just such a genius strategy. I love always sharing my clients' best practices with everyone. So that's one way to think about it too.
That's neat. Very creative. And we do have a separate jobcast that Emilie has done that is specifically on networking online. So I'll post that in the chat momentarily. I know that we are technically over time, but we're going to still stick around and answer some more questions. So stay with us if you want to hear the answers. Our next question here is, what should you do when you're following up and you're not receiving any responses?
It's a tricky question. It depends, is my short answer. The longer answer is this. How likely is it that you're going to that person's spam box? You have to really ask yourself that and give people the benefit of the doubt. If you had this beautiful connection with someone, you were basically, sharing your soul with this person, and you had such a strong connection via chat, and they were so willing to help and so excited to get more materials from you to follow up with you, and then they never got back to you, give them the benefit of the doubt. I had something like that happen where a fellow author, Amanda, who I had on the podcast at Bossed Up, we hit it off. And I emailed her saying, hey, I have this other opportunity to collaborate. Would you be interested? And I didn't hear anything back for weeks. And finally I said, okay, I think if I know her, like I think I know her, there has to be some miscommunication happening here, because I'm pretty sure she would be interested in this. And I'm pretty sure she wanted to hear more from me. So I DM'd her. Now, this breaks one of my cardinal rules in my Jobcast about online networking, which is to try to stay out of people's DMs. The most professional channels to stick to are email and LinkedIn messaging. But when all else fails, hop on their Instagram train and send them a DM. I know that celebrities are more accessible via Twitter DM than pretty much any other way. It doesn't guarantee a response, but you have to decide, okay, is it time to pick up the phone and call them? Is it time to try to message them through a social media app? I think of the unreplied to email conundrum as kind of a modern boulder in the path of the job search. You got to find a way over, around, or under it one way or another. And by the way, our phones have this great feature very few of us make use of, which is actually making a phone call. I highly recommend we give that a whirl as well. If you ever have the opportunity, if you have someone's office line, and I know we're all working remotely, but a lot of those office lines are being forwarded. If you have an opportunity to Google your way to their office number and their emails are not being returned, call them. They might be more receptive than you might think. And even if it's not a good time, let's say you call them and you go, hey, it's Emily. I know a couple emails have gone unresponded to, so I just wanted to get in touch in case they were going to your spam inbox. Is now a good time to chat? Do you have 5 minutes? Give them the opportunity to say, no, actually, I don't. But, don't be afraid of finding a channel that works.
I think that's great advice. And also just, to add in, I think that if you are following up yet again, maybe change the question that you're asking, get a little bit more specific. And like you said, make it really easy for them to give you an answer one way or another, just to open up that communication line. And hopefully that'll get that going.
Totally.
So another question here that also relates to a jobcast you've done with us, Emily. If you have been doing the same thing for the past decade, what are your suggestions for a career change when your resume doesn't match the new role you're wanting?
Oh my gosh, this is the number one kind of client that I love working with, because that was me. That was me 10 years ago. And by the way, who here works in the same career field for 40 years nowadays? It's kind of rare. So know that you are becoming the norm, if not already. Brandy alluded to the fact that I did a jobcast before with Indeed on how to change careers. In it, I talk through some of my best practices for how to reformat your resume. The beauty of the resume is that it's a much more dynamic piece of persuasive communication collateral than you might think. It's all about how you frame your past experiences. A lot of my career transitioner clients, through coaching with me and through our Hired program, we tend to focus them on a skills-based resume. Not always, but most of the time. A skills-based resume can help take, for example, a higher education professional and focus on her skills that relate to HR. If she's trying to go from higher ed to HR and people operations in a private sector that's not higher ed, really reframing the skills that she's developed and the skills that she's brought to the past few jobs in language that matches your audience is so key. Now, how do you know if your language is matching your audience? You got to talk to those audience members. You got to start networking. You got to show them your resume and be like, what looks totally off here? Please give me some feedback. One of my clients was going from nonprofit fundraising to tech. And I had to say development means something very different in nonprofit fundraising than it means in the world of tech. So whether it's the words you use, the keywords that you focus your resume on, or just how you frame your story and your experience, I'm not going to lie, it can be a bit of a challenging process. It's kind of like you're rebranding yourself. You're repackaging your skill sets as a former attorney turned passionate public advocate for the homeless, right? Like you can take that past skill set and make it work for where it is that you want to go next, but you really need to explain your why. Why is it that you're transitioning? Why are you motivated to transition? And spoiler alert, it can't be because you hate practicing law. That's not motivating. It's, I want to take what I've learned from the law and apply it to the communities of color I care about most, or whatever it is. Give me a story that makes sense. And if you feel like that's hard to do on your own, I get it. It's really hard to reframe yourself. It's hard to see yourself, much less re-see yourself in new light. So that's something I work with my clients on a lot. And Brandy can, I'm sure, drop a link to the career transitioner jobcast I did, which is definitely worth taking a closer look at too.
Yep, I just added that link to the chat. And I'll also add in that the Career Explorer tool that we talked about earlier in the presentation is a great resource if you are changing careers or looking to change careers, because it lays out everything from skills that we've seen that job postings in this field usually require. What are the education backgrounds you'd need to succeed in here, and also gives you access to a lot of the jobs that are within that field, and you can scan those job postings to get a better understanding of that language, those keywords, what's going to make you seem like you actually fit within that industry. So definitely a good resource.
If I can add to, you just made me think of this. Some industries will require retooling, right? I have a client who is an accountant, so is a trained accountant, and for the past 2 years has been taking every certificate course, every short-term degree program she could get her hands on to get into UX design. And she really knew that not only did she want to get into UX design, but being an accountant and having advanced degrees in accounting and financial management were not going to play well in the UX job market, right? So she had to not only repackage herself and explain how her skill set in accounting is applicable, like being a meticulous, detail-oriented person really helps her be a better UX designer, and made her a great accountant, but she also had to retool. So I am not one to recommend going back for another degree, okay? Like we all have enough student debt. I'm a millennial. I am anti going to grad school as the career change path by default. But I am saying you need to try until you are running into roadblocks. If you are getting doors shut because they say you don't have the degree, you don't have the technical training, you don't have the experience, you need to volunteer your way to that experience. You need to find a way to upskill, and do not feel entitled. Do not feel entitled to being a leader in a different field just because you were a leader in your former field. Reality is you got to retool and upskill. And that's what Indeed's here to help you do, right? Like the modern job search also requires upskilling and retooling, as well as persuading that next employer to take a chance on you, give you a shot. I know it can feel like a challenging circular loop of give me a shot, boss, put me in, coach, versus I'm practicing. I'm at batting practice every day. I'm working on my skills. I'm working on mastering those new skills. But there's a duality there that you have to balance. And it can be especially tricky for fields that are very hierarchical. So it just depends is the short answer. It depends on how you approach it and what you're looking for.
Thanks, Emily. So I think we are definitely at time now, but if you found this workshop to be helpful, check out our other jobcasts at go.indeed.com/jobcast. As I mentioned, we have a bunch with Emily there as well. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below.